Okay, those are all good sounding answers. Because we spent a whole Dharma on the purpose of this. So I'm looking for one thing. Hmm. No, that's not it. No. That was a good excuse. No. Bye.
This is a note.
So it's cheating, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's reading it from his notes, but at least he's got the notes. Okay.
Well, my first thought was you're cheating because that's a 5 o'clock thing, and this is a noon.
No, no, I did it in noon. I did it in more detail.
So I have practicing Buddha Dharma, purpose, leaving the cycle of birth and death. Listening to Dharma is the most important thing we can do. I wrote to further our cultivation. Sitting practice is inferior to this. Dharma talks are important. And there's the point that you might hear something in a Dharma talk that you're ready to hear right at this time that will help to further your progress.
Now that you're speaking from in you. The rest you were reading, right? And that is closer to the right.
Mm-hmm.
That was just was rising up. Purpose is so that we can become aware of our faults and we can correct. When we're reading, means to be examining oneself in light what's being said right there. And it's not for informational purpose. It's for corrective purpose. And so actually listening means not just hearing something, but putting it up against how one's attitudinal presence is towards that Dharma. Because that's the only way we come to really know our faults. We think like we're good people, and yes, we are good people. But that's not your problem being good. Your problem is when you're missing some principle of the Dharma that hinders, that's what hindrances are, that hinders, that blocks the good that you are already, it's like the good is piling up behind us and it's dammed up. It can't break through. And you're looking for that which destroys or breaks down the dam so that the goodness can flow and have benefit in your life and support and uplift other people. And so sometimes we think, where is the thinker? She's not well. She's okay. Online. Is she online? Yeah. Okay. Okay. It's because I really wanted her to hear something today. That was just the reason I was asking. Is this falling all down? So from here on in, I think I've done it a lot. And it's more of a verification and a validation for me in being taught the real reason for why we give a talk. Because if we give it just for informational purposes, it doesn't become personal to us. It becomes the Dharma out here, and but when it becomes personal to me, then I take it to heart. I look at something in me that I'm doing that I think is perfectly okay, and it clarifies, it corrects that for me, and I can make an adjustment. And in doing this way, it's the Dharma. It feels personal. It's not personal. Um, this is, but it feels personal, but it takes me from the Dharma having to come to me personally, to me going to the Dharma, and the personal aspect of it gets wiped out or erased. And what's left is just the Dharma, and I get absorbed into the Dharma. Talking about getting rid of the self now. You know, all these ways we think we're getting rid of the self by just saying, this is not me, this I am not, this is not myself. Those are just words, you know, but to really enter into the reality of them requires something. And this is what I'm trying to clue you into, how to truly get off the seat of self, and to enter into that space that where there is form and yet no form, where he talks about no coming and no going. Like, what the heck is that? He's talking about being in this kind of space where there is and there isn't. And when we speak of non-duality, you know, we talk about combining these two, but he's not talking about combining. He's saying it's not this and it's not this, you know, that we have our relatives, you know, so hot is hot only compared to cold, you know. And so if we didn't have these two extremes, then we wouldn't have hot or cold. It would just be what something is, you know. But we have this differentiation by relativity. And so he's uprooting this deeply seated notion of relativity, of good and bad, you know, of hot and cold. And yet it doesn't mean that then we can just be either good or bad. You have to understand the teaching. It is that as we start to break away and erase these edges of false reality, then we'll come into the freedom of how things actually are. So he said the purpose of listening to a Dharma talk is so that your teacher can point out your shortcomings, and you can sit there and you can really see them, because this is not just information. This is something directly for me that I need to put into the cauldron of my experience and examine and see exactly where I am with that. And I like to preface that today because I want to talk about a couple of things that's relevant to our Sangha. And there are a couple of other people who are not here today that I wish were here. So I hope they listen to today's talk. I thought I was getting, and I am someone, I thought I was getting this Dharma together for a retreat I have to do for Seattle Insight. But it turns out that our own Sangha needs it. Yeah. Like, I didn't think we needed it, but, and it's in chapter 2 of the Majjhima Nikaya, called All the Taints. And one day, not today, but one day, I'm going to go through a list of the different ways the Buddha articulated the things that hinder us. Some things he called hindrances, right? Some things he called taints. Some things he called fetters. Some things he called both fetters and taints. And so there's a difference. It's a subtle difference, but it's a difference that can really, really bring you clarity when you're actually pondering things and trying to find the right way to look at something or to understand something. Last night I put on the Samo part 1 last night, and I put it on repeat, and I listened to it all night. I didn't listen to it all night consciously, but I listened to it several times, and at some point I fell asleep. And the reason why I listened to it several times is because it's like a 20-minute recitation of things to think about. But if you have 20 things to think about in 20 minutes, you're only thinking about each thing for a minute, not enough time. So I would think about the first thing, you know, and I'd miss like the next 10 minutes because I'm really thinking about the first thing. And then when it came on again, I think about the second point that was being made, and I think about that as long as I thought about it. So, it would take a lot of listening just in one sitting to get through the whole thing. It would take hours and hours and hours of listening. But I was doing that to develop the habit of going deeper than just a superficial, yeah, got that. Yeah, know that. I got that, and to really go deep to see where I was with that. So during the course of the night, I had a wonderful, wonderful experience because my consciousness was constantly being washed, all night, just washed. And when I woke up this morning, I was in a very sublime state, you know. And then I came back to Panyawadi, right? Like when I was fully awake. So I woke up in, I don't know, just in this very liberated space, very free space, not clinging to any. If I could paint a picture of it, it would be like soaring in the clouds or something, and that's a that doesn't do it, but it means like sort of like otherworldly, like just such a space of freedom, freedom of heart, freedom of mind, no aches in the body, just yada yada yada. So then shortly after, I was thinking, because several different things went through my mind for today's Dharma talk this week, which is an absolute waste of time, because that's just what Paniwad is thinking about. She wants to talk about. So I very rarely do it. I, slightly give some thought to plant a seed. Okay, mind, get to thinking, what's relevant. And because in my critical thinking or conscious mind, I may not know what's needed, but if I relax that I think people need, then what's really needed kind of floats up to the top, and I can trust that, because I have no investment in it. And so a few things came up, and I had to, like, today, now it's D-Day, I have to decide which one it's going to be. And it turned out it was none of those. And I'm like, oh, don't do this today. Because, and it turned out it was none of those. And then the experience began. The first experience I had was suddenly I felt so sad. I felt like a kind of grief. I mean, really, really, really deep grief. And I said, all these years, I've been happy with what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, where I'm doing it. I'm just happy, feeling like my life really mattered. And I was clear on what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. I was clear and I was free in that I wasn't captured by needing to keep up with the Joneses or preach what they wanted to hear that made them happy, that I was not beholding to any man. I was free in the Dharma to express it to the best of my ability. And I didn't feel captured or tied down by tradition or by what was popular or whatever. And today I felt deflated and sad because it's like, now I'm ready. And you're gone. And I missed Buddha Master so much. I mean, it was like almost an unbearable grief. And then suddenly his words came to me. And he said, so you missed that body that you saw. He said, that's not my true essence. That's not me. He said, that was just something that I used because you couldn't see me. So I gave you something to see. So have you forgotten already that that's not me? The same way that when you look in the mirror or pinch yourself, that's not the real you. They said, I am my words. I am the Dharma itself, manifesting like that for a little while, amongst other manifestations, but that, I said, have you forgotten? And suddenly all that came up, that bitter doubt, I've never had any doubt. I know what I know, and if I don't know something, I don't know it. You know, that's it. But all of that went away, just like that, you know. But what I had to do was pull up the Dharma, you see. I had to pull up the Dharma that he gave. And what I'm saying to you is that we search for our answers everywhere. And we try to make our answers true by the behaviors that we assume, the rites, the rituals, the rules, all of that. But that's not the real thing, is what I'm saying to you. That's just stuff we do. And we'll continue to do that stuff until we die and not make much progress. But there is a doorway by which we can actually penetrate the teachings to the reality of them. And that's our purpose. For studying, for practicing, for reflecting. And it helps us in our acting, what we actually do. And so I said, there's a teaching that came up about wise attention. And I said, the same way that Buddha Master's essence was not the person that I see, likewise with Panyadeepa, his essence is not the person I see in all of its frailty. And so I said, Panyadeepa, I'm trying to find a sutta that talked about wise attention, what should be paid attention to and what's not. He said, oh, that's sutta number 2. Just like that. He said, oh, that's sutta number 2. And me and Soma had just found sutta number 2 the day before in putting together something for this retreat for Seattle Insight. And so then I went and I read the whole sutta. And it began to speak with me. Now, I'm talking about something today that's about correcting to keep people from falling into a pit. It says, Bhikkhus, I shall teach you a discourse on the restraint of all the taints. Listen closely to what I shall say. Now, a taint is like a stain. Like when I'm eating, I always like drop, like something, either I drop food or like a little drop of grease or juice from something, you know, on almost everything I wear. I get, and so it creates a stain. And that stain mars the outfit. Now I worry if it's a grease stain because I haven't been that successful in getting grease out. I said, oh, I'll take it. K can get anything, any kind of stain out. But I'm not so good at it. I don't know, washing hot water and they tell me that the grease sets. You know, I wash it in cold water and the grease doesn't come out. And she said, oh, you have to put this on it. Sometimes she's putting salt on something. Sometimes she don't, you know, but she knows what to do. So when I get a stain, because I know I don't know what to do, I give it to Kay. And she always gets it out. It's amazing to me. And so if you think of a stain as something that, you know, that mars, that spoils the outfit. And that's one thing. But a fetter is something else. A fetter is something that tethers you to something, like a rope tied around your ankle and around a pole. You can only go so far because you're constrained by the rope, you see. So sometimes we want to go we want to completely understand something, but we can't cross over to the understanding because we're tethered by something. We're tethered to something, some way of seeing or understanding or knowing that prevents us from going too far beyond that understanding. You know, we just can't get to the understanding because that cord ties us to this view, and we can't get over there. Are you with me? So sometimes words are particularly important in the Dharma because they help set up the right idea about something. Whether I have a blemish, or whether I'm tethered so that I can't get to the understanding. He said, I shall teach you a discourse on the restraint of all the taints. Listen and attend closely to what I shall say. Bhikkhus, I say that the destruction of the taints is for one who knows and sees, not for one who does not know and who does not see. Who knows and sees what? Who knows and sees wise attention and unwise attention. I hear something going off and on, so don't pay any attention to that. Okay. It's something's off. I just want to make sure that it's recording. Fine. Okay. Okay. Oh. Oh, okay. Okay, so I can continue. He's going to replace the battery because that only affects in this one. Okay. Because I say that the destruction of the taints is for one who knows and sees, not for one who does not know and see. Who knows and sees what? Wise attention and unwise attention. When one attends unwisely, unarisen taints arise, and arisen taints increase. When one attends wisely, unarisen taints do not arise, and arisen taints are abandoned. Now, when something is abandoned, does it go away by itself?
No, it's still there. We're leaving.
Right. Yes, so we have to leave it. We have to walk away from that view. It doesn't like just dissolve and, oh, now I see clearly. We have to step off from it. Okay, just keep that in mind. There are taints that should be abandoned by seeing. There are taints that should be abandoned by restraining. There are taints that should be abandoned by using. There are taints that should be abandoned by enduring. There are taints that should be abandoned by avoiding. There are taints that should be abandoned by removing. And there are taints that should be abandoned by developing. So there's restraining, using, enduring, avoiding, removing, and developing. All of those are actions that what? That, and because she doesn't have the mic, I'm gonna just say it, that requires action, a conscious decision, and an action of moving away from that they were, that causes that block, that blemish, right? Okay, so it's an action that's required of us, and it's a deliberate moving away from thinking in that way. Everybody with me? Okay. What taints should be abandoned by seeing? Here, bhikkhus, an untaught, ordinary person who has no regard for noble ones and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dharma, who has no regard for true men and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dharma. Okay, what's noble ones and true men? Oh, not all monks though. Okay, so it's those who you can trust, right? That's you can verify by how they live their life that they live the Dharma, regardless of what title they have. But it's those that you rely upon for receiving the teachings, those who have committed and dedicated themselves. I mean, we work it like a job, you know, working it day and night so that we can digest it, understand it, break it down, and serve it. Much like when my daughter first started eating, I would chew up some food. That might sound nasty, but I would chew up some food and give it to her. You know, and she would be able to gum it the rest of the way, you know, until she started breaking some teeth and got able to chew some things herself. And so to make it palatable, to break it down so that it could be understood, so it could be nourishing, could be useful to them. Okay. Who has no regard for true men and is unskilled and undisciplined in their Dharma, who does not understand what things are fit for attention and what things are unfit for attention. Since that is so, he attends to those things unfit for attention, and he does not attend to those things that are fit for attention. What are the things unfit for attention that he attends to? They're things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taint of sensual desire arises in him, and the arisen taint of sensual desire increases. The unarisen taint of being arises in him, and the arisen taint of being increases. The unarisen taint of ignorance arises in him, and the arisen taint of ignorance increases. These are the things unfit for attention that he attends to. The unarisen taint of sensual desire, right? Hearing things that please you or give you comfort, or, you know, tasting, touching, smelling, and thinking, right? The arisen taint of being, that's concretizing the sense of what? The personal self. This is good. I mean, see, like the reason I'm bringing this out is to show us how close we are to penetrating something, and it is this one little grease spot that keeps us from presenting ourselves whole, lacking in nothing. It could be like one little thing. The unarisen taint of ignorance arises in him, and the taint of ignorance increases. These things are unfit. Okay, what things are fit for attention then? These are the things such that when he attends to them, the unarisen taint of sensual desire does not arise, and the arisen taint of sensual desire is abandoned. The taint of being does not arise in him, and the arisen taint of being that's already here is what? Abandoned. The unarisen taint of ignorance does not arise, and the taint of ignorance that is already present is abandoned. So when something comes up in our life that points to our wanting things to be a certain way, wanting to know what that is, but we can't figure it out. So maybe we like ask somebody else, or just having a desire to know certain things. And the Buddha said you have to do your own work. You have to untie your own knots. You have to unravel, drop off, and step away from your own ignorance. And that takes effort. It feels uncomfortable, and it feels like that's just too much work. Let's just ask somebody. But when you do, and you get an answer from somebody, that's an answer that they know. That's not one that you have figured out. And so it can't be used in its purest way. It can be used partially when it's a good response, but not fully, because you have to come to the fullness of the knowledge of that yourself. And sometimes that takes going through something to understand something. So he says, and how does he attend unwisely? He asks these questions. Was I in the past? Was I not in the past? What was I in the past? How was I in the past? Having been that, what did I become in the past? What shall I be in the future? Shall I not be in the future? How shall I be in the future? Having been what shall I become in the future? Or else he is inwardly perplexed about the present. Am I? Am I not? What am I? How am I? Where has this being come from? Where will I go? When he attends unwisely in this way, one of 6 views arise in him. Now I'm talking about cause and condition. One of 6 views arise in him. The view self exists for me arises in him as true and as established. Or the view no self exists for me arises in him. It's true and it's established. Or the view I perceive self with itself arises in him. Or the view I don't perceive a self within a self arises in him. Or the view I perceive self with not self arising is true and established. Or else he has some such view as this. It is this self of mine that speaks and feels and experiences here and there that are the result of good and bad actions. But this self of mine is permanent, everlasting, eternal, not subject to change, and it will endure as long as eternity. This speculative view view bhikkhus is called the thicket of views, the wilderness of views, the contortion of views, the vacillation of views, the fetter of views. And fettered by the fetter of views, the untaught ordinary person is not freed from birth, aging, and death, from sorrow, from lamentation, from pain, grief, and despair. He is not freed from suffering, I say. And this is the reason why the Buddha says to try to find out who I was in the past. What shall I be in the future? And to ask someone, what should I be doing now? Help me to understand who and what I am, where I came from, and where I'm going. He said it's unwise attention. Now, it does tickle our fancy, gives us some false sense of knowing something that may or may not be true. But even if it was true, he said it's unwise attention because it concretizes the sense of self. And so if one wants to embark upon unwise attention, then they can do that. But they should not promote it or encourage it in others who are trying to cultivate wise attention. And one who listens to the advice of the one who is confused and attending unwisely is more foolish than the one that they listen to. So that's what I want to say about that. He goes on and talks about, and this is the reason for it, because if we want to hear it and we don't go to the source that we embrace for our instruction, I mean, like whatever you take up, you should take it up. And when it's no longer working for you, you need to leave it and take up something else. But when you start mixing things and can't even realize that one bumps up or goes against the other, so that you can't even decide whether to do this or not, then you're going to be confused. If the Dharma cannot dispel your doubt and put you in a place, I mean, I as well as everybody else, in our frailty, in our ignorance, have doubts. Doubts will come, but we don't have to take them up and we don't have to act upon them. We should find the Dharma that dispels the doubt. That's the practice. That's what we do. And we get stronger and stronger when we do that, because we realize that we actually have the capacity to be a light unto our own feet and a lamp unto our own path. It doesn't mean that we don't have to search out the wisdom and reflect upon it until it becomes our wisdom. But it means that we're not left helpless, that we have to run helter-skelter and try to find somebody else's views and somebody else's ways of understanding something to give us a degree of comfort in our, we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable and motivated to seek out our own answers through our own practice. That's the only way that we grow. Otherwise, we just become forgetful hearers. But I want to say also that there's a danger in this. If one wants to go off, go off, but don't take somebody with you. And then that person unwittingly and unknowingly gets another person looking in where they're focusing unwise attention. Then they're wondering, should I do it too? And another, and another. And there's a price to pay for that, whether you meant to do it or you didn't. If the action's done, there's a price to pay. It's just cause and condition. There's a price to pay. So we should be very careful, exceedingly careful, even when we're trying to be helpful. If we can't give our answer from the Dharma, we should just say, I don't know. If we can't find what cures our doubts in the Dharma right now, we should still searching, but we shouldn't cause the arising of sensual desires in others to know and to run after certain things. Now, maybe if you didn't know, I won't say that you are held accountable for what you don't know, but I will say you suffer for what you don't know. And again, it's not personal. That suffering's not personal. It's just the result of not knowing, you know. If you don't know fire's hot and you put your hand in, you know, you get burns, not because the fire was out to get you. You know, it's just you didn't know the fire burns. And now you do, you know, so you have a respect for it going forward. Just a respect for its properties. And one learns how to use them in a certain way. You know, for heat, but you don't burn down your house. And so this is there's no way. There's no way to advance except this way. We could see it even like as we grow from being a child to a toddler and starts thinking about things or having ideas or being captivated by things, you know, to being a 6 or 7 or 8 year old, to being a preteen, to being a teenager, to being, you know, a young adult. And bit by bit, I don't care how much a 12-year-old wants to be 25, they're not. And so they're necessarily going to have some challenges that provoke them to grow. And some of those are going to be good experiences, and some of those are not. But that's how they learn what to do, what not to do, and how they can make inferences. They don't have to like learn everything by experience, you know. I can watch you put your hand in the fire and get burned, you know, and maybe like if you just touch it and it was hot and you said that, ooh, that's hot, I'm like, still don't know what that is. But if you hold it there long enough and your fingers are melted, I know what that, you know, I have enough of an idea that I don't want to go. I don't need to do it. So some things we can learn by inference. Some things we just have to experience because of ignorance. But once we know, we know. And so that was what I wanted. That was one thing I wanted to talk about. The other thing, or just to tag on to that. And some of this is gonna be on this morning. I touched a little bit of a state last night, and it was wonderful. And this morning, I was like just in the afterglow, right, of that state. It was a pleasant abiding here and now. And then it subsided. And there was such a difference between how I experienced the moment in that state, and then out of that state, in my natural state, that it was heartbreaking. It was almost unbearable. And so there's a principle that we have to follow, that we should apply a heart of sincerity. I mean, a true heart of sincerity to correct our behavior. We think we know what things mean when we say, like, well, I don't steal, I don't kill, I don't do this, I don't do that. You know, that's a carved in stone, but we don't know how to take it to its most subtle forms to really examine ourselves. So we walk away thinking like we're so okay. And then when we don't attain certain things, when we don't attain certain things, can't unravel something, when we can't when we don't have certain experiences that the Dharma promises. He said, have you attained any supernormal state since you've been meditating and living together, flowing like milk and water? They said yes. Can you say yes? And said that the reason that people can't progress is that they have not truly heeded the words of Dharma. They heed the ones they want to heed. I know that's a lot like me. The ones that I'm willing to commit to be ready for, I heed those. The ones that I've found that if I don't, I get burned. I pay attention to those, you know. But I only go as far as I want to go. I only give as much as I want to give. I only do as much as I want to do. And he's saying, that mind, if you follow that one, you won't reach the goal. You will get some benefit. And if that's enough, okay. But I do know that there are some of us who want to reach the goal. The Buddha constantly talked. You know, almost every Dharma talk he gave, he not only talked about what needed to be corrected, but he definitely talked about reaching the goal. So he kept the end game right in front of his disciples all the time, every time. He wasn't just saying, stop doing that because it's not going to happen. He said, stop doing that and do this. And this is where it will end if you stay on the path. This is the end goal. So you knew the don't, you knew the do, and you knew the end game. But if we don't hear about the end game, after a while, we'll think one step is enough. We'll hear about this much is enough. And then our friends say, you know, it doesn't take all of that. And then and so we end up round and round and round in samsara. He said we cannot progress because we have not truly heeded the words. Therefore, we don't reach these high states. He says, and it just simply means you have not entered into the Buddha Dharma. The Buddha Dharma, the Buddha mind, the awakened mind, is the one that the garment, this garment, has been through the dry cleaners and they actually got the spot out. The spot is out. That's why he talks so much about things that we think we already know and that we have already perfected or that we agree with, but then our life might not particularly show that we agree with it. So he told a story about a disciple. And I'd like to share this story. Said, I'd like to give you a simple example involving disciple Zihong Lu. A while ago, she gave rise to certain thoughts. If she wasn't giving rise to doubts about, this disciple or that disciple, then she was giving rise to doubts about me. Sometimes not teaching her the Dharma, or she was giving rise to other kinds of doubts. She had many doubts. And as a result, she did not experience these supernormal states, because that's what gives you your knowing. It's not hearing me read it, say it, or not even hearing you or you reading it. But it's the resultant experiences that give you your faith and your confidence. That what you know directly to be true, because you stepped into it, you experienced it. It was just like what is written in the essay on experiencing effects. She gave rise to doubt in that she questioned whether her spiritual capacity was inferior and whether she herself was no good. She thought about things like this all the time. Those doubts were all wrong. It's not about questioning whether our spiritual capacity is inferior or whether we're no good. It's whether we actually know what is good and do what we know. And if all you know is ABC, do good at ABC. And when you do good at ABC, D comes. When the question comes, one can find their own answer, and find their own answer within the category or the frame of reference of what is wise attention. Otherwise, we get carried off, also subtly, on another way. First, it's needing to know the answers. Who was I in the past? What was I? Who am I now? Where am I going? And then the one you get those answers from, the next thing you know, you're caught into, how should I do this? What should I do? And then from there, it's a rabbit hole that we won't get away from. But he teaches us to rely on ourselves, to work through our fears, and to use the Dharma to put away our doubts. And you have to learn how to do it. Otherwise, you walk around like a person on a broken leg or trying to chew on a broken tooth. But if you want to become strong in the Dharma, if you want to penetrate it, you have to do that with patience, step by step. The thing is, when we run too fast because we want it so badly, we miss all of the steps that are necessary for us to actually have the true maturity, not lacking anything. And it's so hard for us to be patient because we want something so bad. That's the central desire. Even desire for spiritual things. And to restrain ourselves is difficult. But to really perfect everything so that there's not a spot, that when one takes that next step, it is sure, it is definite, and one knows that it is. They won't vacillate. Even when doubt arises, they know how to raise up a standard against it. And so she began listening to my discourses and she progressed. And then one day, suddenly, she entered the Dharma. Mhm. She suddenly entered a state of concentration, not while she was meditating with her don't know mind, but she entered a state of concentration while she was listening to a discourse on the Dharma. She dropped into that concentration about the truth of that statement. The ignorance was dispelled. All her doubts and her fears were vanquished. Then he went on and he talked about another example. You said, I give you these examples so that you can understand what I mean. Now, I love reading this discourse. It tells what not to do. Right? But I love these discourses because it gives examples of what happens when you follow it and how a person has a personal liberation, how one frees oneself when they stick. Yeah, when they stick with it. And I hope I'm encouraging. I hope I'm encouraging you today, because I tell you, it's nothing like it. That when doubt rears its head, or when fear of the future comes, or when there's like, I don't know what I should be doing and how I should be doing it, comes, when these things come up, if you turn to the Dharma, one needs to know for a fact that one can rely on. It says, I tell all of you disciples that if you cultivate yourselves well, you will not have to fear anything. You will be able to overcome every difficulty. Don't be solely focused. And now he's talking about a particular person. He has a different issue. Doesn't have doubt. Doubt's not his Waterloo. Right? This is another guy. It says, don't be solely focused upon the business you're now doing. What's the big deal about small business profits? I've seen so many examples. In a few days, a fellow disciple, Si Jiao Ken Tong, will arrive here. You can ask him about this yourself. He was once very poor. He was the chairman of the first opposition political party in Taiwan. He was most amazing. He was the one who organized the first large-scale demonstration in Taiwan. Before that, no one had ever demonstrated after the Kuomintang party took over Taiwan. He organized the largest demonstration. People who participated in that demonstration actually surrounded the presidential palace. Still, such an amazing person later on decided to follow me and to learn Buddhism. I said to him, you are a Rinpoche. You're not some political activist. Why do you want to do such reckless things? He later heeded my words on the Buddha Dharma. What the Buddha Dharma said was important, what we should invest ourselves in. And we think like social justice is it's an important thing, right? And we think like feeding the poor and helping the destitute is an important thing, right? And we think about it, we can come up with all the things that we think are important things. I'm talking about people now who've even left the other things like, their personal wealth, their personal comfort. Now, that's one whole level. We're not even going to talk about that. Okay, but And so then people start thinking about what I can do for others, and then they get caught up in that realm. But there's some place to go beyond that even. And then they have the good fortune to encounter this Dharma that begins to take them into another realm of existence. So 3 different jobs, 3 different works that we can do. Right? But one of them has far-reaching consequences. Beyond that, it helps erase the whole issue that man has. And when one learns that and begins to disseminate it, it helps to filter down and take care of all those other problems. And so he said, why do you want to do that? Because you have had the good fortune to encounter this Dharma on this level, which means, he said, there'd be no way to encounter it if the causes and conditions weren't right. So you have to know that to encounter the Dharma on this level, that it's not a gift. It means that the karma has been earned. It's not a gift. We hold it preciously, but one has to know that the karma has been earned. So if you know that the karma has been earned, of course, there's no pride that goes with that. That's just a thing. It's just knowing it. And one can receive it. And one can uproot their conceptual thinking and can recognize the truth of these teachings. They can realize it. And so he said, over these past years, he's come to learn Buddhism. He flies from here to China twice a month just to see me and get a little short teaching while it's here. He said, who does that? I like that. Like, who does that? He said, yet he has done this without interruption. And this has moved me. Said he later became poor and he used up all his money. He had no money and he was in great difficulty. But yet he dared not act recklessly since he cared about the precepts. And he changed the way that he was living. So the things he could do before, he could not do those things. And so he came to me and he said, Buddha Master, what should I do? I very much lack good fortune. And I said, don't worry, just listen to the Dharma. And it will definitely cause your good fortune to increase. You will not be able to completely use up such good fortune during the rest of your life. He said, and I told him he would be poor temporarily. And then I taught him how to practice Dharma correctly. And he succeeded. Why did he succeed? Because he very much heeded the words of the Dharma to you. He said, I will explain to you 2 matters. Both matters are based on science. First, if you want to increase your good fortune, you must bring people to the Dharma who have good fortune. He replied, why, Buddha Master? I told him, it's very simple. Only those with good fortune are able to thank you. Said, this is just simply realistic. That's the first thing. If you bring in a poor person, you have to help him pay his ground transportation here and his airline tickets. You have to take care of him, he said. And this was the person who was like very, generous in his giving, very, he cared and he prepared. But he said, if you want to be able to take care of a few, then take care of all you bring in. So, but if you want to be able to take care of a lot, then you need to bring in people who have good fortune. Good fortune means a good heart for the Dharma, who want to participate in the Dharma being dispatched to the people, who will support that work. He said, that's just realistic. And so he was speaking to him about what he must do, instead of always wanting to help everybody who, when he helped them, they could help nobody else, and go for the ones who already had a certain means and a certain desire, and helped him to be able to disseminate the Dharma in a short period of time. And this took a shift in thinking for, for that man who the Buddha recognized as a Rinpoche. And then but he hadn't come into karmically into the space that wisdom would manifest. You understand what I mean? If you don't, say you don't understand. Okay, so this is about when a person is acknowledged as something. Let's just say they come into this world, and it is the mind stream of someone who's had a high level of teaching before, right? But they have not come into, they haven't unpacked that mind, come into that mind clicking and opening up. So they have to learn whatever they learn from whoever their parents are. And some point in time, because of the karma, they encounter the teachings. Might not have been the one they were raised with or whatever, but they encounter the teachings. And as they take hold of the teachings, they have an affinity with them. Because in that mind stream locked away, there was already a certain development. And so as they begin to practice this, okay, we have ways that we look and understand things wherever we are right now. But as we get closer and closer to the maturing of a certain karma, then things begin to unpack and we can understand them more easily. And then we reach that critical mass point, where it tips the scale and the remembrance is there. And then that gets verified, and those who can see those things, they come into an agreement. And it's a certain number of verifications you need from high level Dharma kings and so forth. And that's, say that's that one is Rinpoche so-and-so, and they agree on who it is. That's the same way the Buddha master became known as Dorji Chan Buddha III, or Vajradhara, or Samattabhata. All of those are the same name for the same great being, and him being a manifestation of that being in this world. And so he says that this situation, he calls it, this situation of him being a Rinpoche had not yet been revealed. So I finally revealed it to him, but only when his accomplishments rose to the level of that. And I went and I performed the Acharya initiation. And as a result, his good fortune became complete. So when we start talking about knowing spiritual principles, it's an important thing to know. And sometimes we do something imitating something, mimicking someone, just like our children. My daughter would dress up in my high heels and get in my lipstick, and she put on my hat, and she'd walk around, and she would mimic and she would imitate. And at some point in time, she came into her own adulthood. So we do that. But it means that as we grow, we need to drop off the mimicking and take up what is real. And that can be very challenging for us because for so long we've worn mama's hat and we've pranced around and we've said all the good things to say. But there's someplace higher to go. And to go to the higher place, we have to drop off the vestiges of what we think we already know. The Buddha Master said, oh no, I think one of the holy gurus, we wrote a song for Buddha Master and sent it to him. They wrote us back because Buddha Master said, write a song. He said for us to really go forward with this. May not look like anything now, may not even sound that good, but I don't care how it sounds or what it looks like. It's keeping with the charge. And what we put into it is what it's going to be. Not what we start with, not what it looks like. We make it what it is. It is creation. And so I say this to you so that you can go further. And the pointing outs are going to be like even more specific because they really, really count now. And we are going to find our confidence. We are going to realize the Dharma that's in us that we just don't always adhere to. But we will know that it's there and we will begin to act upon it and give no space to what we were in the past, who we were in the past, how we were in the past. And we don't even have to worry about what we'll be in the future, who we will be in the future, how we will be in the future. The only thing that counts is right now. So where are you right now? In the things that you know. To end this story, now this particular disciple, the one who was the big social justice, guy for Taiwan, and I saw him on a video that moved me very much. He now has a few 100,000 disciples. He said, with so many disciples, if I wanted to accept offerings from them, all I need to say is, I am poor, I need. And they will give me so much that I would have a few billion Taiwan dollars if each only gave a little bit. He said, but of course, I don't want their money. I don't want their offerings. And he said, but there is a business venture that I want to invest in so that I can do what I want to do for people and I don't have to ask anybody. And he said he needed 2.9 billion Taiwan dollars. Buddha Master said, that astounded me. I told him, you must be joking. What disciple would give you 2.9 billion? That's too much. He said, no, it's not. He said, a few of my disciples are able to do it individually. And then shortly after that, there was a family that had come, and the family was being harmed. One of the family was being harmed by an evil spirit. And he said, where was that demon court? He said, at the Hyatt Hotel. And so Buddha asked the guy who answered, were you there? He said, yeah, I was there. I remember. He says, right, seems that you were there. There were 8 people there the day that demon was caught. He said this family with all of its power, with all of its family, with all of its wealth, but they had been attacked in a way that humanly it would not be possible to deliver them. And that teacher did. That disciple did. And they alone gave him the 2.9 billion that he needed. And so I remember when I stepped out of the Christian church and I got this charge. It's been a long time now. And I told you all the story, how, so it's something for everybody, right? It's not like I don't like telling y'all what y'all need to do. But I mean, every single one of these teachings is for me. Every one that I gave today. So don't think I'm pointing out anything with anybody. I'm only pointing out the Dharma. And every time I hear the Dharma, if I hear it, then it's something for me. If it's within my hearing, I'm looking at how to apply that to me. Every single story. Somebody shared with me yesterday that they had a reading and they asked about me as well because, they're studying with me. And the lady said, oh, she's very kind. She's almost a bodhisattva. She doesn't even have to come back to this world, but she's going to make the decision to come back 5 times. Thinking, oh, I knew I was almost a bodhisattva. I'm serious. I mean, that's the first thought that comes up with selfing, right? Oh, somebody sees me, selfing. You see what I mean? And then I said, oh, but that part about coming back 5 times, no, there's billions of worlds to go to. I'm not coming back to this one. That part ain't gonna come true, okay? I'm just saying. Because some things are your choice. We have the pseudo aspirations, like if you want rebirth in this world, do this, or this. I'm like, no, I didn't know before, but now I know, so no more for this world. And then she said, well, you're 8 billion years old. I said, damn, that's bad. That all I understand is what I understand after 8 billion years. But you see how just the conversation is what I'm saying. Starts to bring up certain things in you that's around the grasping that's attained. Around who was I in the past? Who am I now? What shall I be in the future? Seemed very innocent, very subtle. But the Buddha said that's unwise. That's going to take you around a concretizing of a selfie, take you down that rabbit hole. And you're not going to be able to escape. So I take these things very seriously, and I'm so grateful to know them. Even when I learn things things that don't agree with how I feel right now, that don't agree with my view, I hold them. That's what I'll think about that later. Because later, sometimes they come up, and now I understand the thing that I rejected in the past. I understand it fully. I understand this man talking. I said I'm through, when I felt that I got a charge to go forward in a certain ministry, I said, there's no way I'm going to be able to do it. In the church, in the position that I hold, around the people that I associate with, and we all think this way. And now this is being revealed to me. I don't know what to do that. He said, you got to strike out. I don't mind going alone, but I'm going to tell you what, if you I was talking to, to Jesus. I said, like, if you send me to do this job, you're gonna have to give me the means to do it because I don't want to beg. I don't want to ask anybody for anything. I get what I want myself. And that's what I said. So I feel that I'm coming to the end of begging. I only have what I can have, what I can bring forth myself. And whatever I don't have, if it means that we have to sit at the root of a tree, anyone who wants to come under the shade of those branches is welcome. And it's such a liberation for me. So Buddha Master said, okay, you open the correct cultivation, learning from Buddha Academy. He said, of course, you can charge because you're not like me. He just put that to bed, right? No, you don't have the spiritual good fortune yet. And I'm thinking, I got a lot of good fortune. I know I do, but not what it takes to do this work. So I've got to get it. And I can only get that myself, my own development internally. I'm not ashamed to tell it. Because I'm all in. That's where I am. So we all have things that are being corrected. How wonderful that is. And if we're not afraid of the changes that we have to make. So if somebody's stingy, stop being stingy. If somebody is relying on others, stop relying on others. If somebody is full of doubt, deal with your doubt. Look in the sutras and find what you need. I'm so grateful. Google's got lots of issues, or whoever the people are who get all your information. But they also have made available so much information and a platform where we can make information available to others. We have to learn how to use it to share this Dharma. We have to learn how to use it. We have to learn how to use our technology. I think we've invested how much? Like maybe 50,000 already. Doesn't look like much, but when you start putting all these things together, it's a lot. It costs a lot. Now I know it's $50,000. I mean, one good mic is close to $1,000. But this is what it takes. So who am I relying on? The good fortune that I accrue to bring forth what is needed. So now I put it out there. Don't call and see if I have any. If I have any good fortune or not. But I tell you what, there's a staying scared. And I just want to be truthful. This is a level of truth that is so wonderful to step into. Because then one knows that they're truly stepping out of this world. I think that's all I want to say today. May you be well and happy and peaceful. I say it all the time. May no harm come to you, no danger. I say it all the time. May you always be able to meet the inevitable difficulties of life. I say it all the time. But don't let it just be words. When you say it, really mean it.